One of the busiest weekends in news and politics that I can remember. We start with the failing Ron DeSantis campaign, like a wounded bird falling from the sky. Not a bad quote from the failed former president Donald Trump. Ron DeSantis recruiting his wife, Casey DeSantis, in advance of the forthcoming Iowa caucuses. And unfortunately, Casey DeSantis suggesting to people that they do something illegal. The people of law and order, the people who will protect you from voter fraud, are suggesting that very same voter fraud. Here is Casey DeSantis telling people around the country, go to Iowa, participate in the caucuses, because you know what? Anybody can participate in the caucuses, even if you're not from Iowa. This happens not to be true. Here is Casey DeSanctimonious suggesting something against the law.
We have a huge coalition across the United States of America of mothers and grandmoms. When the governor was reelected, we had a coalition of 1.1 million mothers and grandmoms in the state of Florida. That was the largest that had ever been done in the history of our state, and probably, I would argue, across the nation. We're asking all of these moms and grandmoms to come from wherever it might be, North Carolina, South Carolina, and to descend upon the state of Iowa to be a part of the caucus, because you do not have to be a resident of Iowa to be able to participate in the caucus. So moms and grandmoms are going to be able to come and be a part and to let their voice be heard in support of Ron DeSantis.
Isn't that great? If you are pro sanctus from Florida, you can just go to Iowa and participate in the caucuses. It just so happens this is untrue. It just so happens this would be illegal. Non-Iowa residents are not allowed to participate in the Iowa Republican presidential caucus. Those caucuses, like a state primary, like other caucuses or caucus in the United States, are restricted to residents of the state who are eligible to vote. To participate in the Iowa Republican caucus, you must be a registered Republican and resident of Iowa of legal voting age. This is standard across U.S. states to make sure that you have eligible local residents having a say in terms of who is representing their state. Now, very quickly, when Casey and Ron were told, hey, folks, this is illegal, they tried to back up and they tried to backpedal. And Casey DeSantis putting out an excretion on X where she said, quote, "We've built a nationwide coalition of moms mobilized to help elect Ron DeSantis, Mamas for DeSantis, while voting in the Iowa caucus is limited to registered voters in Iowa. There is a way for others to participate. I'm calling on mamas and grandmamas from all over the country to come volunteer in support of DeSantis in the Iowa caucus. Go and get registered to participate." So once she was told, ma'am, you're suggesting crimes, then she said, what I meant was just you can participate in the Iowa caucuses by registering to volunteer, I guess, which is, of course, not what she meant. This is like when Trump says, I'm having cognitive glitches on purpose. And we look at the video and we go, that's absolutely not what happened. Not even a possibility that that's what happened. It's the exact same thing. The folks who are for law and order and who say it's Democrats who are going to commit all sorts of fraud are suggesting illegal activities with regard to the Iowa caucus. But you know what? It's not going to come to it, because Ron DeSantis is failing, and he's failing in Iowa big. I don't even know that DeSantis will end up third in Iowa. If he's lucky, he'll end up third in Iowa. So I wrote another book for kids. The first book was Think Like a Detective. The point of the first book was to teach kids critical thinking, which Republicans don't want them to learn, because when kids learn critical thinking, they don't vote for Republicans. The new book is Think Like a Scientist. This is a fun adventure teaching kids the scientific method. Again, Republicans aren't big on kids learning the scientific method, because when they do, they're less likely to fall for Republican lies about climate change and vaccines and so many other things. You can get the new book as well as the first one at davidpakman.com/book. This is part of the Adventures in Thinking series. Can you imagine that we're doing this? We are. davidpakman.com/book. 13,500 copies of the first book have sold. I'll bring you an update soon on sales for the second book. Think Like a Scientist. davidpakman.com/book.